Good, y'all seeing this thing? Alright, so today we're talking about understanding slow motion. So, I did do a video similar to this, I don't know, months back. But you know, we've grown just a little bit now, and yeah, we're gonna kind of redo it. And also, first things first, so this is day 7, right, of daily videos. And not the upload I just did, I think it was like day 5 or something. It like uploaded in VR mode and I couldn't fix it, and then it somehow got erased on my hard drive, or I don't know, just yeah. This week, as far as videos go, it's kind of been like a hit and miss, so I just put it on private, so hopefully I can try to, you know, fix it. Or I mean, if you guys have VR, then I'll make it public again, but it just was pointless because you can't really just watch the video. So yes, doing a slow motion, obviously you have a higher frame rate that makes it slow motion. Basically, so if you're shooting at 24 frames per second right now, that's basically like the normal cinematic kind of mode. You have 30 frames, but if you're doing 60 frames per second, it has more frames to basically capture from to slow it down, if that makes sense. So the higher frame rate you go, the more slow motion that you can get. Say we have, you know, this handy dandy fidget spinner, right? Mint. So yeah, we have this fidget spinner, and obviously when you're looking at it, this looks normal to you, right? This is normal, what we would see. So say for example, you're trying to get a shot, a little cinematic shot, 60 frames of you spinning it or whatever, and you want it to be slow but not too slow, so you're shooting at 60 frames per second. So your shutter speed needs to be double of your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 60, it needs to be at 120, or depending on your camera, whatever is closer. So that's the same for any frame rate that you shoot at. It needs to pretty much be double or whatever is closest to that amount, unless you're breaking it for a purpose or a reason or artistic situation. Going back to 60 frames per second, if you're spinning this at 60 frames, it needs to be at 120, and that's where you're gonna get the smoothest slow motion. Now, say you're spinning it and this is just way too fast for 60 frames, and maybe it looks a little jittery, or it's not going as slow as you want it to, then you can bump it up, maybe go to 120 frames per second. Then you want to do your shutter speed, double that, which is about 240 or whatever is closest to, depending on your camera and things like that. So that's really gonna slow it down. But for my camera that I'm using now, whenever I shoot 120, it doesn't have any audio. So keep that in mind. If your camera can shoot 120 or 60 frames, but it cuts the audio out, just keep that in mind. So maybe you can be like, well, I want to shoot 120, but I need the audio for whatever reason. It's going to be slowed down, but you know, I need the audio, so you know, shoot at 60 frames. And also, if you are a beginner, intermediate, advanced, or whatever, if you are familiar with Premiere's Pro Warp Stabilizer, which is supposed to help you with any jitters on slow motion or certain clips, in my opinion, just don't use it, because I've tried it so many times, whether it was kind of like smooth slow motion or like smoother, maybe with like a little jolt or whatever, but it just makes your clips just jittery, and it'll punch it in a little bit to, I guess, kind of crop the size or whatever. It's just bad. Just don't do it. I mean, maybe you guys' clips will look better than mine did, but I even tried it one time when it was just like super smooth, nice, coasting, whatever, and it still was trash. Some things that I do sometimes is I'll record longer than what I think I need, and then I'll just use the part that looks the best. So like, I think it was the other day I was shooting my dog going out, you know, to the dog park, and I had that 120 frames per second, and there were some parts where it just kind of was just a little jittery and just not looking as good. So obviously I cut the parts that I didn't want. I mean, that's pretty much with any editing, right? But especially with slow motion, sometimes it can do jumps or look all over the place. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty simple. If you're gonna shoot slow motion like 60 frames, just make sure you crank up that shutter speed, double your frame rate. So that'd be 120 for 60, and then if you're shooting 120, it will be 240. Yeah. And I am done with this Just Smoothie cleanse. Finally eating. I'm about to have like a nice little seafood boil. Can't go wrong with seafood. Well, you can. You can go wrong with anything, but I haven't had seafood in a long time. I love seafood. So I'm gonna eat me some nice crab, some nice shrimp, some sausage, some eggs. You know, I'm diving in. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much plain and simple. If you're gonna shoot slow motion, you know, 60 frames, just make sure you ×2 on that shutter speed. So 60 frames would be 120 or what's closest to. And then of course, if you're gonna shoot 120, bump it up 240 or whatever closest to, depending on your camera. But all right, y'all, don't forget to do all the things, the liking, the subscribing, the commenting. All right, y'all, I'm out.